In an escalating tiff between US President Donald Trump and Apple CEO Tim Cook, Trump has threatened to slap 25% tariffs on iPhones that are sold but not manufactured in the US. As a result, Apple stocks too have seen a beating in the US markets. But it's not the first warning of its kind though. Just a few days ago, Trump had again asked Tim Cook to stop building more manufacturing plants in India. But why is this significant? Now, this move comes at a time when Trump's tariffs have already pushed Apple to shift its production from China to India. And during an earnings call, CEO Tim Cook has already declared that the company aims to produce the majority of iPhones being sold in the US in the June quarter, right here in this country. Now, this is not all. The company is also eyeing to move 25% of its total iPhone production to India in the coming years. Over the past 5 years, India has emerged as one of the biggest manufacturing hubs of Apple iPhones, and the government continues to encourage Apple to produce more. In the last financial year, India churned out iPhones worth $22 billion and is responsible for nearly 20% of the total iPhone production. Experts have said that if iPhones were to be manufactured in the US, the cost of iPhone could see an almost 3x rise. Not just that, despite Trump's tantrums, Apple seems to continue its expansion plans, with Apple's main manufacturing partner, Foxconn, investing $1.5 billion into its India unit. So let's take a look and let's actually see what has been said so far.
Apple has decided to source all and produce all its mobile phones in India in the years to come. The telecom equipment market is rising manifold. Our sales of mobile phones alone is worth 200,000 crores in the last fiscal, which means we are talking about close to about $24 billion. And our telecom equipment market, from sales exports of close to 8,500 crores, has risen to almost 20,000 crores, which is $3 billion.
Apple, as you know, is coming in. And I had a little problem with Tim Cook yesterday. I said to him, Tim, you're my friend. I treated you very good. You're coming in with $500 billion, but now I hear you're building all over India. I don't want you building in India. You can build in India if you want to take care of India, because India is the highest, one of the highest tariff nations in the world. It's very hard to sell into India. And they've offered us a deal where basically they're willing to literally charge us no tariff. So we go from the highest tariff, you couldn't do business in India, we're not even a top 30 in India because the tariff is so high, to a point where they have actually told us, I assume you too, Scott, you were working on that also, that there will be no tariff, right? Would you say that's a difference? They're the highest, and now they're saying no tariff.
I'm now joined by my guest, Naganand Doraiswamy, Managing Partner and Founder at Idea Spring Capital. Thank you so much for your time, Naganand, and good evening to you. Apple, and now we're seeing Trump's latest salvo that he's firing on Apple and Tim Cook. But let me understand this. Apple produces 15% of its global iPhones in India, creating around 2 lakh jobs. So how has this shift strengthened India's position as a global manufacturing hub? And what challenges might tariffs pose to sustaining this momentum under the Make in India initiative?
Yeah, Sanjana, thanks for having me on the show. I think before I answer the question of the impact of India, I think we should understand why Trump is saying what he's saying, right?
Sure.
So Apple is now the second most valuable company in the world behind Microsoft, almost $3 trillion, and probably the most well-known brand. And Trump's message and vision has to be to bring manufacturing back into the US. And suddenly Apple moving from China to India is going to disrupt that thought process. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I think we are hearing him say that Apple has to manufacture in the US. And hopefully, we will be able to negotiate that, because you can always negotiate with the administration to see what's best for both the countries, and our government is already in the process of doing that. And I sincerely hope that we'll be able to have a discussion and see what best solution we can arrive at. I don't know what the answer to that question will be, but I think there'll be quite some intense negotiations around that. So that I think is the core thought here. And obviously, India being the manufacturing hub, it would be great to have those companies like Apple. But Apple selling in the US is one, but Apple will also sells in other parts of the world. So we hopefully will still be able to continue to manufacture for Apple. Whether we're going to sell to the US or other parts of the world, that has to be seen. But I think India has to continue its journey to be a manufacturing hub for the world, and we cannot steer away or veer away from that thought process and the plan.
Okay, but we know that Trump has called for Apple to move the iPhone production to the US, citing high Indian tariffs. So, from a tech industry perspective, how feasible is it then for Apple to relocate its manufacturing from India to the US, considering cost structures or even supply chain dynamics?
I think that's a very hard problem to solve, right? Because even when you look at chip industry, for example, automobile industry, I think manufacturing is a very, very long a process. You have to build the supply chain, you have to build the infrastructure, you have to get the labor. So it's not like what we typically do in software, where you can quickly move things, because there's absolutely nothing in terms of asset investment. But manufacturing is very, very asset heavy, including the logistics, supply chain. It's a whole bunch of things that needs to happen. So I think anything happening overnight is almost ruled out. It'll take time, and I don't know how US will be able to just move everything into, Apple will be able to move everything into US and start manufacturing those. It has to take time.
So we also went into the why of this. So I'm going to ask you another why now. So India has emerged as a key alternative to China for Apple's supply chain. What unique advantages does India offer? Is it skilled labor, infrastructure, policy incentives that have attracted companies like Apple? And how do you think US tariffs are going to undermine these?
So I think if you look at where India is being positioned, right? I mean, we are now slowly moving away from just being services to actually product company, product nation, right? So there are a lot of manufacturing that we are doing now, including most recently what we saw in the war, the kind of technologies that we had in-house. And there's a huge drive in India to manufacture everything, as many things as possible internally, and gain the advantage of being a deep tech world, right? Being the deep tech country. And in my own fund, we are investing in a lot of companies that are developing these kinds of products. So I think we are already on the path. So we'll continue the journey no matter what. But having the ability to manufacture Apple products, it'll build the ecosystem in India quite well, because then you'll bring up the ODM industry or the outsourced design manufacturing, and the necessary skill set that will be required to even go after fabs, right? Because fab is very, very highly skilled. And if you want to build fabs, you have to have that. But before that, you have to have manufacturing of products like this. So I think in our journey, this is very important. So I think we should do everything we can to hold on to these kinds of contracts that we can get to manufacture to the world. But tariffs is a much bigger game, Sanjana. I know, it has impacts around the world, and the best economists are grappling with this. The best business heads are grappling with this. So if you listen to any Federal Reserve or anybody talking, they always say we need to wait and watch. So I think tariff game is a wait and watch game now.
Absolutely. I think the world, you've hit the nail on the head. The world has been waiting and watching, and it's almost like every evening in India at 7 o'clock, a bombshell is dropped on Truth Social or a press conference. You spoke about your fund. As a venture capitalist, you support India's tech startups. How can these tariffs affect the broader tech startup ecosystem in India, particularly those involved in electronics, components, or even services that are linked to Apple's supply chain?
So look, fortunately on the software side, we're not getting that badly affected, right? Because the tariffs is hitting mostly physical products. But as we start to develop more and more products that we want to start to export, the cost becomes an issue. But I think India will still be, compared to other parts of the world, will still be very, very cost competitive. So as a fund in the very early stage investments I make, tariffs are not going to make that huge a difference. But as for larger companies, as you start getting bigger and as your export starts getting larger, I think that's where you'll start seeing the impact. So early stage deep tech investments, I don't see too much of an issue. We'll continue what we want to do, but when you get to the medium to the growth stage is when we'll have to start worrying about these aspects.
All right. Thank you so much, Naganand, for all of those updates and sharing your perspective and your insight. As the July 2025 deadline looms, I think your perspective has underscored the need for strategic resilience in India's tech ecosystem. So all of us here will be watching closely, like you said, waiting and watching how these negotiations unfold and what they mean for global supply chains. So thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to more discussions on India's rise as the manufacturing powerhouse. Thanks so much.